Hello and welcome to week number 6 in Science 260. It's the 6th week out of 8 weeks, so we're getting to the end of the term. We've got things going on, so let's see what they are. First of all, we're going to do a quick review of last week. We learned about drawing conclusions from data and results. So you were supposed to look at your sources and figure out what the data actually meant or what the results actually meant from your sources. And then you were supposed to relate that back to your prediction about your question. So we'll see what you came up with. You also learned about minimizing bias, which is terribly important in science. So we do things like double-blind studies where the researchers and the test subjects, neither one know which treatment is being given. So you take out all that bias. You take out bias also by choosing your source of funding, which you don't always have a choice about, but anyway. So for example, if you are funded by the federal government, for example, the National Institutes of Health, Cancer Institute, National Human Genome Research Institute, etc. If you get funded by a federal agency, then there's no pressure on you to get a particular type of result. If you get your money from a biotech company that's working on GMOs and they want a particular result, that's what they're looking at from you. And if you don't get that, you better believe you won't get further funding. So minimize bias. And we looked at the value of scientific inquiry to society. It's so important for science to continue and for science to build up a knowledge base. Now, with that being said, knowledge and even what we would call facts are not written in stone. Any new piece of information that comes along can change the way that we think in science. Our ideas are not set in stone because we do this inquiry thing. We're always asking questions. We're always doing experimentation. We're looking at those results and we're trying to interpret what they mean. If something else, something new comes along, that may change our way of thinking. So realize that. But a knowledge base is very, very important. And some people will argue, well, you should only do science as it applies to problems in everyday life, like you need to find a cure for psoriasis. Yeah, that's nice. I wish we could, and I wish we had, but we haven't yet. Other people will say, well, just studying basic science is really, really important. Both are important, of course. But I'm going to explain to you why basic science is so important. And I'm going to give you an example. Back in the 1950s, there was a huge push after World War II for science to focus on curing cancer. Now, what do you know about cancer? Has it been cured? No. Are treatments better? Absolutely. Are diagnostics better? Absolutely. Can we cure some cancers? Yes, we can. Can we cure all of them? No, we cannot. But over all these years, since the 1950s, we've done a lot of basic science research. For example, in the cell cycle. So how cells live out their cell cycle, how they divide, how they reproduce their DNA. Are there stop points along the way that will keep a cell from doing bad things if they're mutated? We have learned all of this since the 1950s. So because we've learned this basic science, we've been able to figure out lots of things. For example, we understand so much more about the aging process. Aging has to do with cells, which is very interesting. There is a limited lifespan of cells. And that limits our lifespan as any type of organism. The basic science has led to many new treatments for cancer, many treatments for different types of conditions. because we understand how cells work now. So basic science is very important. We don't always have to do application science for everything that's out there. We need the basic knowledge base first before we can continue. Okay, so this week, what do we have going on? We have discussion board postings this week. And of course, the initial post is due by Thursday. The response posts are due by Sunday. Your initial post, you should read through the module guide because this will give you a really good discussion about how scientific researchers communicate with the general public. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. So, in your initial post, you're going to discuss how researchers communicate to the general public. Well, there are all different kinds of ways that scientists communicate. One is through scientific meetings. So they get their information out there by going to a big meeting where there are other scientists and they present in front of the group, like with a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, but there are only a certain number of scientists who are ever invited to speak in a meeting. All right? If you go to one of these meetings, maybe you'll listen to 10 speakers, maybe less than that. That's not that much information. Another way that scientists communicate is through posters. So I would make a poster of my work. No, it's not a poster board. It's a big old, big poster board that you get printed out on fabric now that shows all of your work and what your data was, what your conclusions were, all of that. And a synopsis of this would be printed or included in the meeting agenda. And so other scientists who are interested in your work will read it and then come up to your poster, and you are standing there, and they will talk to you about what you learned through your research. So that's another way. Peer-reviewed journals. Another way that we put our research out there. Now, anyone can be privy to any of this information. This is never hidden. But you're probably not going to read a peer-reviewed journal called Electrophoresis. That's one that I'm published in. Yeah, you're never going to see that. But other scientists who are interested in that would read that and look over my work and do some peer review and make sure I've done everything correctly. I've come to the right conclusions. I got results that look good to them. Then scientists can move on out into the public. So we can write blogs. We can make YouTube videos. We can write for magazines. We can write for newsletters. We can just talk to the general public in forums or whatever. The one important thing to realize there is that you have to know who your audience is. I will tell you that I have spoken to and led activities with groups of people from preschoolers to scientists who share my same interest and same research, to medical doctors, to nursing home patients, to college students. Okay? Every group of people that you could possibly think of. I have to tailor my presentations to that particular audience. What do they already know about my subject? Maybe nothing. Medical doctors knew nothing about the science that I was doing, so that's kind of interesting. They know all their stuff, but not anything about my science. So you have to realize who the audience is and tailor your presentation to that group. How do you get the attention of the public? It is absolutely, positively necessary to explain to them why this topic matters. Why should they care about this? That is so important to share with them, because otherwise they are just going to tune you out and walk away. All right, why is it important to communicate with the public? For one reason, they vote. And voting means that money will be shuffled one way or another to help solve problems in the world like climate change or cancer cures or whatever. So voting means money is shuffled different ways, and so it's very important for the general public to understand our topics in science. How do we communicate this to them? We show them what our results are, and we explain to them what our conclusions are. And then, of course, we've already told them why this is so important. And then finally, you're going to explain why the general public trusts teaching scientists like Bill Nye or Neil deGrasse Tyson. Or me. Notice I put that in there because that's what I am too. Why does the public trust people like this? That'll be an interesting thing for me to read. Your response post. Build on what your peers have written about these answers. So look at what they say is the importance of communication. And I want you to tell them what are other ways that you can get the attention of the public. What should you consider about presenting your findings? You absolutely have to put it in a form that whoever it is you're presenting to will understand. If I make a graph that looks like it would be published in the journal Science, which is the foremost scientific journal in the world, if I present to a group of middle schoolers, they're going to understand that graph. So you got to figure out how to show your findings. And what do you think of their assessment of the teaching scientist, including me? Then you have your Module 6 assignment due this week. Read the first part of Chapter 12. Now, I don't know why you need to know everything you need to know about physics or organic chemistry or even biology, and I totally disagree with what they said about biology. So anyway, if you have any questions about that, I'd love to talk to you about it. I'd love to discuss it with you because I don't think everybody needs to know what a Golgi apparatus is. I don't think that's the most important thing in the world to know about biology. So anyway, I'll be glad to discuss it with you. Just email me. We could even set up a WebEx meeting or something if you want to discuss that. Read the first part of Chapter 12 about bringing the sciences together because they all are interrelated. Restate your STEM issue again so that I don't forget which one it is and your possible solution, and then describe the benefits and disadvantages of this solution. So, what's good and what's bad about this particular solution? Describe at least one possible impact of this solution, whether it's positive or negative, on the society or on a particular population or community, and explain why you support this recommendation, even if it has something of a negative impact. There must be some reason that you have recommended this. So how about support this recommendation? Include, if you will, findings, because that will certainly help. And then finally, my tip of the week is to proofread your work. And this is true in your jobs, in your schooling, in an email message that you send out to your significant other. Yeah, it's important to proofread. Proofreading is not always easy, and a lot of people have trouble with it. I'm pretty good at it, but a lot of people have trouble with it. So here's one tip. It's going to sound silly, but read your work out loud to yourself or get somebody else to read it to you. You will find the mistakes when you hear what is there. Okay? Notice the errors. If you're working in Word, these pop up. You see them highlighted. And it even gives you suggestions about what to do. So fix the spelling, fix the grammar errors, fix the punctuation, fix everything that you need to, always, in everything that you do, including email messages, everything. All right, with that being said, I hope that you have a great week number 6, and just let me know if you need anything, m.sigmon@snhu.edu.